this to the agenda. So I don't know if you have access to the agenda or not, so I'll put it in the chat. So I'm working on service accounts or bot accounts, and I'll share my screen also real quick. Let's see, it's this one. No, that's not right. Where is the screen? There we go. So this is something that's been going on for quite a while, actually. We want to do access tokens or specifically bots. There's been not this issue, perhaps the previous one. Yeah, this is it. There's tons of documentation and comments and back and forth. Become a bit of an emotional issue for some folks, just in terms of the lack of implementation, lack of execution in the perfect iteration of this versus MVC or small iterations.
Okay.
And so I was using this kind of as like a reference point to do some research or study around other organizations that do bots or service accounts.
Oh my God, I was working on service accounts at my last job when I left.
Perfect. So you'll be able to have some feedback. So generally what I was looking at was, this is my first iteration of what would be the idea. Could we have an idea if we make a new bot button versus a new user? And that looks like, actually, I'm not sure if you've got installed the GDK just yet. If not, no worries. You can get to it at some point in time in the future, but let's see. So the idea is you would click on the new bot and it would have kind of just generic information that currently exists within the new user. But this is kind of, like I said, a first iteration, and I asked what sort of features or points are relevant or not necessary.
So is it always a bot? Like, what does bot mean to you? Because
Yeah,
my
so
familiarity with service accounts is like a developer account or an integration.
exactly. So what we're looking for is a few things. Let's see here. So access tokens is our current iteration.
Okay.
And we have access tokens, we have, or excuse me, personal access tokens. We
Okay.
have, whenever this loads, we have project access tokens. We have, let's see, documentation. Number 6. Deploy tokens. And now there's an issue to create group tokens and instance token. So basically access tokens at every level of our environment. I'm not sure what's okay. And so the idea is we're going to start with just personal access tokens for the first iteration. And so from here, you just create the access token as you normally would in our environment. Once you generate the access token, it gives you the key or the token itself, and then you integrate that into whatever your code you need. And so the proposal that I had is, well, can we make this a little bit easier? Is there some way we can make this not as complicated or more flexible? Because the limitation we have right now is just strictly at the object level. So in case, the project access token, or in the future, the group access token or the personal access token or deploy keys, is there a way to kind of make this logic more streamlined? And that's where I was trying to go back and research or look at other organizations, how they implement them. So it came down to this as the MVC, where I think this is it. That's the closest we're missing. Yeah, access level tokens should be configurable instead of being maintainers. Service accounts tokens should be somewhat independent. Allow the creation of multiple service accounts. Allow creation of multiple access tokens and varied token types. So and that's where I was getting with this kind of first iteration, like ugly wireframe. But then I was thinking to myself, well, I have this idea where this is the new user creation screen.
Okay.
If you look here, I'll go back a step. The initial, or one of the initial asks was that there's no way to see what's a bot and versus what's a user in this screen.
Okay.
So we were going to say, why don't we just drop another tab in here to separate what's a bot and what's a user?
Okay.
And so I was thinking, well, let's drop in a second button here that says create new bot versus new user. And then I thought, well, maybe instead of just doing that, we just go to the new user section. So we're not having to create a whole new page from scratch.
What percentage of our customers have at least one bot?
I do not know yet. So that's something that I would have to further investigate. But from here, I'd want to add like another feature that says what kind of user you want to create. And so the idea would be either you create like a human user or a bot user. And if you select a bot user, it would get rid of things that aren't necessary. So these containers just disappear. And it would only have things that would be relevant. So in this case, access level, things like that. So that was my first, or excuse me, my follow-up to this topic that we have here. There's quite a bit of discussion here in this thread. Let's see, where's my little prototype? So yeah, it was this right here. And I was trying to create a iteration off of that. And I think we might have like the first thing to prototype or test with based off of that logic. I'm just waiting for feedback from Imra. Here's a little prototype link itself. But yeah, so the idea being is that I think that would be the first MVC where, oops. So we create a new user. Here's the user type. And then it would define it. And then you would just save it. But again, like I said, this is just kind of a first iteration. I wanted to get feedback on this and see if this made sense.
So are you using bot and service account interchangeably? I'm not understanding.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yep.
No, that's okay. As the newbie, I like all these things you just kind of know. I don't know any of them. So
I'm also learning right now, actually on the fly, because I'm not usually, I haven't really messed or investigated with service accounts and bots just yet.
Okay.
My only experience with them is like where we have here in our environment. So we have some like GitLab support bot, GitLab alert bot. There's some other ones that already exist from the GitLab organization that we offered to protect our environment. So if somebody uploads malicious code, we have a thing that would do like check for that and say, oh no, this is malicious code. We're going to flag this. You can't integrate that code into our environment.
Okay.
So we have defined bots. End users or organizations would probably like to generate their own sort of bots. And the MVC would be to create personal access tokens for the admin or end user, whoever is generating the personal access token. Go into this little prototype, create the bot user, the service account, define its access role, and then save it, and then go into its code base or the person's project, and then integrate the token that they have generated into their project. And that would generate the quote unquote service account or bot. And this is the first iteration that we have that we want to try and propose.
So somewhere along the way, the access token is it assigned to the service account, or how does that work?
That is exactly the question I had. I was asking, how do these two pieces communicate with one another? Where did my discussion topic go? Let's see. And Imra, he's our backend engineer that's working on this with me.
Okay.
He stated that would be done in the developer's code or in their environment. It would be done in the backend. So here I said creating the service account would be just giving it an access level. I assume what comes after this is in terms of linking the two after the PATs are created. It's done in the dev's code and not in our environment. And so yeah, that was the way they would be done.
Okay, gotcha.
So again, like I said, this is all just our first iteration, kind of a first investigation onto how this problem could be solved.
Okay,
And so my next step is to kind of maybe try and start building out some visuals and like have some feedback sessions with some users just to get
okay.
some solution validation rather than trying to develop this and go in straight into code. I
Yeah,
believe this one is slated for Q4 and they have pushed for Q3 being workspaces. I don't
okay.
think because I don't, so I obviously, I guess, you're going to be in workspace and not access anymore because access has been broken up a bit.
Well, I don't know that because what Orit told me is that they're going to be breaking it into two, but I can pick which one I want to do.
Ah, okay, okay.
But
And
I
that
don't
was
know for sure. That's just what she
okay.
said one time briefly.
Gotcha. So I don't know either. And so I'm
Okay.
trying to understand. I'm trying to figure that out also. Um, because like I said, we used to be access and now it's going to be workspaces and something else. And I actually think it's going to be a third thing. My initial understanding was workspaces, access, like validation login, and then there was a third item which escapes me right now, but
Okay.
something else. And so this was like earlier discussions. So just in terms of what you want to do or where you plan on wanting to put your expertise in, this might not be relevant, but this is kind of what the task that I'm working on right now.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, this was really interesting. It's a very familiar problem to me. So yeah, and I wrote down the issue number and I'll go read. I want to read the problem statement and everything
Mhm.
again. And
Sure.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so this one and workspaces, like I said, are the two that I'm focusing on. I think I tagged you in the workspace stuff also. That
Okay.
one, I would argue, is probably more further along in iteration because it already exists in the GDK, which is this environment here. So basically, I have a localized instance of GitLab.
Okay.
And if you want to, we can talk about that now since I don't have any. Alexis took off, she said. Um, so yeah, it's a localized installation. And we want to bring features specifically like this called admin into the self-managed environment, or excuse me, the SaaS environment, which would be this. So let's see. Oh, Lord. Let's just use a project. So from here, there's features and settings that don't exist within, or excuse me, yeah, they don't exist versus what we have in a self-managed environment. So here I have this thing called admin,
Yep.
where I can go and have administrative features across the entire environment. However, a lot of these things are hardware environment or install base environment questions or features, which don't necessarily have any relevance here in the self-management, or excuse me, the SaaS environment, because obviously we're not, a SaaS customer is not going to be trying to play with our hardware, right? That would just be a security problem.
Yep.
However, we want to offer them things like this, for example, user management, which doesn't exist in this environment. I don't have a way to manage the users for my organization. I have what's here membership for a project, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they are part of the organization. So there could be team members who come in through like a SAML group sync that don't necessarily exist in this project because they're in a different team or whatever, but they exist in my organization. And so because I don't have that way to look at everything from the top level, which this admin area does, we want to bring that feature over to this self-managed environment so that I can look at all of my users and not just the ones in a specific group. So from this level of visibility, it's hard to kind of visualize what it looks like or the topology. And so
Okay.
this is kind of what we're trying to define. And so the best way that I could kind of visualize it or explain it is that if you look here, you have things like milestones, snippets, admin. These don't exist in a hierarchical logic structure versus groups. Let's see here. So arguably this screen would be the logical container. Would not actually, and these would be the sub items for that logical container. And that's the parallel would be here, for example. So this would be GitLab, and you have everybody underneath it, all these subgroups, sub projects. However, this exists at a layer above. So arguably the layer you're seeing here, gitlab.com, would only be this, for example.
Okay.
And you wouldn't be able to see anything external to it, which is what these are. And that's the workspace environment that we're trying to find in the SaaS model.
So who creates these external groups? How do they get created?
So the way that would work is if you look at the SaaS environment, think of it just like this. So I would just create more new projects or new groups from within here.
Mm-hmm.
So anyone could theoretically do it. The problem is in this environment, you wouldn't necessarily have access to them as a whole or as a totality. So say, for example, here you have the whole totality of the environment, and we want to define or add a feature like I'd want to see all the milestones for all these projects or all these groups in totality. So I can measure my organization metrics across versus just one container object. And
Okay.
that's where this workspace environment is the container that would have all of those feature sets. And again,
Okay,
like I said,
so it's going to be called Workspace in SaaS, and will the name also change in self-managed?
yeah, it's hard to say. We haven't discussed that, right? So, and even still,
Okay.
the workspace was kind of just like a band-aid topic. It was kind of like brought up for discussion amongst a few people, but it wasn't measured against market testing or anything like that.
Okay.
There was discussion about using certain things, but there was like, no, it's too close to competitors. And arguably there's possibility for that to be further explored, but we're just calling it workspace for the time being, just to kind of move forward.
Okay.
I don't know, imagine there'll be much pushback on that anyways, though. So hopefully that gives a little bit of insight as to what we're doing with the workspace stuff. And again, going back to what I was saying about the MVC for that was that one of the initial proposals was doing specifically user administration, because that doesn't exist at the time being. There's also an MVC proposal that people want, that they want to be able to see groups and issues, epics. I was arguing against that because I haven't started or investigated anything around that. And it's too bad Alexis dropped off because she's more attached to that part of the organization than I am.
Okay.
But the idea being that they would also exist just like, let's see, epics. So here I'm at the top level. I have epics and I have lists and I have my boards, but I only have them vertically within this organization. I don't have that insight laterally across the totality of my organization structure.
Okay.
And that's one of the things, the other MVC that they were trying to propose for that.
Whenever
I don't
I'm
know.
looking at an issue, is there an easy way to find what was decided on as the MVC, or is it just like hidden in a comment somewhere?
Let me go back and get that for us. Let's see. Just 1 second. I believe I tagged you in this one, so you have it for FYI.
Okay.
So you can, if you want to poke at that. But this has a really in-depth discussion in regards to like the technical limitations, architecture mapping, you know, the work efforts involved. Let's go back to the top. The breakdown of how they want to try and plan this or investigate. This is the discussion regarding the proposal.
Okay.
This was my iteration 1 proposal where I was saying we're just in bringing in the users and the work that's already in progress for that. Iteration 2 or 1B, I should say, is groups. I argue that that was low value, or I should say less feature usability. Like it's just the group insights. Like, okay, cool, I can see whatever's at the top level, but what do I do with that information? And there was another one. Let's see if I can. Yeah, so Orit suggested that we bring plan features, issues and boards, epics as an MVC. And that's what I was saying. I didn't necessarily have investigation into that. And that's where I commented Holly and Alexis, if they could bring any sort of discussion into that insight.
Okay.
Would they want to talk about that? So Holly gave some insight. Gabe is the PM for that group regarding issues and boards and epics. So yeah, here, this is just a higher zoomed out view. The problem, one of the issues, again, going at this scope, whenever you go higher, you have much more content you're dealing with. And so we have a performance issue with population of that content. So for example, no. Yeah, so epics. We have 4,100 epics. And then if you imagine you want to populate the that laterally across your organization, how many more is that going to explode to? And
Right.
then if you think about that vertically, so the next thing is epics would be issues. So imagine how many 10,000 issues you have per every one of those, you know, theoretical epics.
Right.
So there's a huge mapping problem and problem with getting that data to the front end without blowing something up.
Okay.
Where was that discussion point? Yeah, have performance issues. So these are all things that we need to investigate on the back end. So proposing that as an MVC, I think that's the concern, is what's the issue that would be less problematic or require less effort from the front end / back end, you know, any other part of the organization. Whereas what I was thinking about the 1A MVC with just bringing user admin features to the front, or this 1B where we just have visibility across the groups, might be less of a team effort and more so just like the front end can just kind of smash out an iteration on that, since the logic already exists in the self-managed environment.
Mm-hmm.
It just we don't have an interface or a window for that.
Okay.
And so that's kind of where we're at right now. We don't have an official first iteration MVC. We have a couple of proposals. I'm moving forward with this thing that I was speaking of earlier with user management. This is kind of a separate issue that started with this thing called view and set attributes. But the MVC for that is to have visibility to your user management. The first proposal is to get rid of the admin features of it, just strictly the visibility. So just I want to see the users that I have in my organization as the first iteration to test the logic. So no admin, no edit, no new user creation.
Okay.
So yeah, that's kind of where we're at with workspaces.
Okay.
And so yeah, like I said, just in terms of like how you feel moving forward, what you want to spend your energy with, what you feel your expertise lies in, don't be shy about voicing your opinion or concern or pushback. And I would say, you know, you have the expertise you need to solve all the problems versus myself. I'm relying on you to help me.
Well, I'll do my best. I still
Mhm.
have so much to learn, but we'll get there, right?
Yeah, for sure. And just kind of going back outside of work, but more so specifically around the task with the onboarding stuff. Like
Yeah.
I didn't finish my onboarding stuff for like months after. So don't worry about it.
Okay.
I would say focus on like some of the basic stuff, but then mostly stuff around you want to work on for the team, for what you want to proceed with for your projects. I'm not sure what the PM onboarding stuff is, but UX stuff was a lot of like reading the handbook, reading like about the organization, reading about the technology, learning and how the environment's set up.
Yeah.
So things like that.
Yep. Yeah. The PM stuff seems similar. So,
Mm.
well, that's good to know that I don't need to chug through it. I can gradually pick up some, more access specific stuff rather than just,
Yeah, definitely focus on stuff that you're going to be working on,
okay.
and then just kind of like quickly skim through the rest of the stuff. Because, like I said, you necessarily won't have direct contact with that, apart from chatting with other PMs about, hey, we're doing this feature. Do y'all want to, partner with it, or is there anything any toes we're gonna step on?
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you for the advice.
yeah. We're out of time. I'm sorry I didn't have any space for you for questions. Do you have any?
Well, I felt like we were kind of going back and forth and I was asking
Okay.
questions. So
Okay.
I
Perfect.
think for
Perfect.
now I got them all answered and you seem like a
Okay.
great resource. So I will definitely be in touch with more.
Yeah, yeah. Anytime you want to like chat about stuff or have any questions, just shoot me a message. We got our meeting scheduled next week or something. I don't know, but yeah,
Okay.
I'll definitely hang out when we can chat.
All right. Thanks, Daniel.
Cool. Good to see you. Take it easy.
All right. You too. Bye.